Tonight on Reporting Scotland. On the eve of his return to Holyrood, Mark MacDonald says he considered not going back after he admitted inappropriate behaviour towards women.
I'm not going to go back there and be welcomed back with open arms. I accept that. I accept that relationships that I had previously, many of them are going to have to either be rebuilt or people will not want to have anything more to do with me.
Also on the programme. Rape Crisis Scotland condemns a new policy which could compel reluctant rape victims to give evidence. The moment the whippet was whipped away. We speak to Tartan Tees' owner about the Crufts protest that disrupted the Midlothian champions' big moment as top dog.
It wasn't necessary. I mean, they're animal lovers, and the animal lovers went and scared this little animal.
And in football, the Scotland manager Alec McLeish calls up 6 new faces to his international squad, including Manchester United midfielder Scott McTominay. Good evening. The former Scottish Government Minister, Mark MacDonald, says he considered quitting Holyrood after admitting inappropriate behaviour towards women. The Aberdeen Donside MSP resigned from the SNP last week. He intends to return to Parliament tomorrow as an independent. He's been speaking to our reporter, Rebecca Curran.
Can you start by telling me exactly what it is that you've done and how many women it involved?
So I said in my statement last week that following the investigation and having seen a copy of the findings, which I was not given to take away with me, that I had accepted that in respect of 2 women, my behaviour had fallen below the standard that I should have set for myself and that should have been expected of me.
It's been reported that you repeatedly touched a woman at a party in 2016, did you?
I rejected that during the investigation, and not only did I reject it, I was able to provide a witness who was with me that evening who could verify my movements and verify that I did not do that.
It's been reported that one victim spent time in hospital. She took 6 months off work. This is not just a couple of text messages, is it?
That was never at any stage mentioned or raised with me.
But she will potentially have to face you again at Holyrood, won't she? Is that appropriate?
Well, I accept that, you know, there are people out there who I have upset, and not just directly but also indirectly as a result of what has happened. And, you know, I'm asking for a second chance. You know, one of the things I think what I hope comes out of this is that if people do find themselves feeling uncomfortable and I am not aware of it, they should feel free to say to me. At the time, I do not recall it being raised with me that this had caused offence or upset. If it had done, then I would have obviously addressed it at the time. I'm not saying that in all instances, because as I said, there are areas where I accept that at the time I thought I had addressed mistakes made. And I'm being I appreciate that for you this is very difficult because I'm not being open about each example, but I'm doing that
It is difficult, and it's difficult for your constituents, and they're telling us that because they feel they don't know exactly what it is that you have done, and it seems that you could go further without identifying anybody about exactly what we're talking about here.
Well, what I've said is that, you know, I think that one of the things that would perhaps be helpful is if the report were to be available. Now, it would have to be redacted.
When are you actually planning on going back? And in the long term, are you planning on doing this job from afar, from Aberdeen?
So my intention is to return to Holyrood tomorrow on Tuesday. I accept that, you know, I'm not going to go back there and be welcomed back with open arms. I accept that. I accept that relationships that I had previously, many of them are going to have to either be rebuilt or people will not want to have anything more to do with me.
Are you staying for the money, or because potentially you feel that you wouldn't be employed anywhere else at this point in time?
I'm staying because the greatest honour was to be elected to serve the communities of Aberdeen Donside, the place where I live, where I grew up, where I'm raising my family.
At any point over the past 4 months, have you considered standing down from Holyrood altogether, walking away from this?
It was a 4-month period where this investigation was ongoing, where there were long periods where I had no information about what was happening, and during that period, you think about all the different eventualities and outcomes, but ultimately you make a decision about what you're going to do, and that's what I announced when I stood up and made my statement.
Well, our political editor, Brian Taylor, joins me. Brian, a lot of pressure on Mark McDonnell to resign from Holyrood. Will he be able to withstand this?
He's going to need resilience, Jackie. Let's face it, he's going to need a brass neck as wide as the Clyde to tough this one out. I think the vast majority of parliamentarians will ostracise and shun him. If there were some of the SNP benches who were impressed by his apparent contrition, I guess they take a line from the First Minister, who says that Mark McDonnell should simply no longer be an MSP. And today we had the SNP member James Dornan coming forward with a letter of protest, a formal objection to Mr McDonnell's continuing presence at Holyrood, saying that one of Mr Dornan's female staffers was subject to what he calls she was a targeted victim of harassment and sexual innuendo by Mr McDonnell. They are scarcely chilling the champagne for the welcome party at Holyrood.
But Ryan, if his fellow parliamentarians don't want him there, can they force him out?
There are good reasons, Jackie, why there are very strict limits on Parliament's rules for kicking out an MP or an MSP. The good reasons being that this ought to be a job, whether someone is elected or kicked out is a job for the voters, not for politicians who may have a partisan agenda behind it all. So there are very strict limits on what Parliament can do. If he wants to stay, he can, for the most part, at least until there is a formal challenge, he can stay in place. But his position at Parliament in Holyrood has changed. His office, for example, on the 4th floor in the SNP corridor has been removed. He's been allocated new premises in the basement, admittedly the upper basement.
Brian, thank you. A 29-year-old Edinburgh man who pushed a passenger he'd approached at random into the path of a London tube train has been detained under the Mental Health Act after pleading guilty to attempted murder. Immediately after the incident, which was caught on CCTV last November, Alan Alencar of Northcote Street went to the entrance hall at Bayswater Station and waited until his arrest. His victim survived with serious injuries. Detectives trying to find Suzanne Pilley, who was murdered 8 years ago but whose body has never been found, say they've had a positive response to their appeal last week. The 38-year-old from Edinburgh went missing on her way to work in 2010. Her former lover, David Gilroy, is in jail for the killing. Police suspect he hid her body in the Argyll area. The force says it's taken over 20 calls since the renewed appeal, which are being assessed. Rape Crisis Scotland has criticised a new Crown Office policy which could compel reluctant rape victims to give evidence. The charity says issuing a warrant for the arrest of victims who don't wish to testify in court would reduce confidence in the system. Well, our correspondent Lucy Adams joins me. So, Lucy, what are the changes here?
Well, essentially it means that a victim of rape or sexual assault could be forced to continue with the case and give evidence even if they don't want to. Now, the changes come into place today. The Crown Office says this is just a rebalancing of existing policy and that it would always take into account the attitude of the complainer and support people. But Rape Crisis Scotland is furious about this. They say that they could see warrants issued for the arrest of victims to force them to give evidence. They've issued an open letter today, and they're saying this will damage confidence in the system, which is already, in their words, notoriously low.
We're really disappointed and really concerned about this change. What it will mean is that survivors, complainers will be forced to give evidence against their will. One of the key reassurances that we're currently able to give people is that if they don't feel able to proceed, that their wishes will be respected, but this will be gone, and that one of the key challenges is the lack of control that they have over proceedings, and this will make that worse.
If, Lucy, reaction is so strong to this, is there a chance of a rethink on the policy?
Well, ultimately, that's going to be up to the Crown Office and the police. But certainly that's what Rape Crisis Scotland is hoping for. Now, the Crown Office is saying it has a duty to protect other members of the public, even if a particular witness or victim doesn't want to pursue a case. But we know that the police and prosecutors are already under pressure following a fall in the conviction rate for rape. And if the reaction is, as according to what Rape Crisis is warning, they're going to be under a lot more pressure when this comes into force.
Lucy Adams, thank you very much. A man has admitted killing a woman by strangling her in an Aberdeen flat. 32-year-old Mark Bruce was originally charged with murder but admitted the lesser charge of culpable homicide. He strangled 20-year-old Chloe Majazek after the pair had met for the first time just hours before. Bruce later went to a local police office and told officers, "I've done something terrible. I've killed someone." Edinburgh Zoo has suspended its giant panda breeding programme after years of failed attempts to produce a cub. A spokesman for the zoo told the BBC that Tian Tian and Yang Guang will not be bred this year. Tian Tian had failed to produce a cub 6 times since moving to the Scottish Zoo in 2011. Zoo officials said they wanted to make some enhancements to the giant panda enclosure before attempting future breeding. The owner of the dog, which won the Best in Show at Crufts, has described her fear when animal rights protesters invaded the stage last night. Yvette Short from Midlothian says the protest was unnecessary and that activists who say they are animal lovers frightened her dog. Joanne Macaulay reports.
Relaxing with her owners after an exciting weekend, not only did 2.5-year-old Tease from Bonnyrigg in Midlothian win the Hound Group title, she went on to take the top prize, Best in Show at Crufts. But as she was stepping up to the podium at Crufts to receive her prize, 2 animal rights activists broke through the barrier and onto the arena to protest at what they call extreme animal breeding.
It scared me. It scared me, and then she was a bit scared when it was her turn to for her moment. But it wasn't necessary. I mean, they're animal lovers, and the animal lovers went and scared this little animal. So yeah, it did scare. Yeah, it wasn't nice.
The protest was organised by the animal rights organisation PETA. It says it wanted to highlight what it calls canine eugenics.
Crufts is really everything that's wrong with the dog breeding industry. It encourages dogs who are born to look a certain way at the cost of their health. And when you just look at all the different kinds of breeds who are still qualifying and winning at Crufts, you can see there are dogs like pugs, for example, whose faces are so smashed in now that they can hardly breathe, I mean, let alone run around and play, but just breathing is a struggle for them.
The organisers of Crufts have described the protest as irresponsible and say the welfare of the dogs is their top priority.
We had 25,000 dogs there. We have a team of vets at Crufts. We have done so much work over recent years to actually look at how people breed dogs. We have health tests that breeders use on a regular basis to make sure that they make use of technology, to make sure they do breed healthy, good, happy dogs. And that's what Crufts is a celebration of. It is all about happy, healthy dogs.
As her owners celebrate the win, Tease seems to have recovered from the drama of the weekend and is enjoying some well-deserved rest. Joanne Macaulay, reporting Scotland.
More than 20 people have been reported in connection with historical child abuse after police reviewed hundreds of thousands of old records. Detectives began the task of trawling through the documents more than 2 years ago in preparation for the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry. Here's Stephen Godden with more details.
Well, the catalyst for this police operation has been the Scottish Child Abuse Inquiry. The inquiry, which is being chaired by Lady Smith, which has been hearing evidence in Edinburgh, was set up to examine historical cases of children being abused while in care in Scotland. Now, in preparation for that inquiry, which began in late 2015, police began re-examining old records, which in some cases dated back as early as the 1970s. Now, these records have been gathered from all corners of the country, in storage facilities and in offices, the length and breadth of the country. And to give you a sense of scale, it's an operation that has involved forklift trucks loading bits of paper onto wooden pallets and then onto transit vans to move them around to get them into one place so that officers could look again at them to see what they might find.
There's perhaps been isolated inquiries done in one part of Scotland and there was a similar inquiry against the same named person. We would be able to pull those together now quite effectively and put that to use in terms of generating corroborative evidence.
Is that, how fruitful has it been, the work that you've done up until now?
Well, so far we've been able to report in excess of 20 people.
Well, to date, officers say that they've examined more than 200,000 documents. As a result, more than 20 people have been reported for historical child abuse allegations. That's a figure that they expect to rise. They will carry on with this operation until the child abuse inquiry ends. It's scheduled to carry on at least until the autumn of next year. Stephen Godden, reporting Scotland.
It's 16 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's top story. The former Minister Mark MacDonald says he hopes his constituents will give him a second chance after he admitted inappropriate behaviour towards women. He plans to return to Holyrood tomorrow as an independent MSP. And still to come, Alec McLeish says he hopes to usher in a great era for Scotland as he introduces 6 new faces for the forthcoming friendlies against Costa Rica and Hungary. The SNP leader at Westminster has joined the condemnation of the attack on a former Russian spy in Salisbury last week, which the Prime Minister has explicitly blamed on the Kremlin. Ian Blackford said he fully supported the government and its moves to send a strong message to the Russians. Tonight, in a tweet, the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, said Russia simply cannot be allowed to launch attacks on our streets with impunity. Well, our political correspondent David Porter is at the House of Commons this evening. David, what did Mr Blackford have to say?
Jackie, there are very few issues which unite a Conservative Prime Minister down here at Westminster and the Nationalists, whether they be the SNP at Holyrood or here at Westminster. But what happened in Salisbury just over a week ago transcends party politics. As we've heard, the First Minister has intervened tonight calling for cool heads and determination and saying that Russia cannot do these type of actions with impunity on the streets of Britain. Theresa May said that as far as she was concerned, she was convinced that it was highly likely that Russia had been behind this attack because it was a nerve agent of military quality which had previously been used in Russia, which had been used in this attack. In his response to the Prime Minister's statement, Ian Blackford said there needed to be a concerted response by both the UK and the EU.
There must be a firm and strong action taken to send a clear message to the Kremlin. We will not accept Russian interference in our democracy or in our way of life. I hope the Prime Minister will be taking time to raise this matter with colleagues across the EU, as our closest allies help to give us a strong voice when we all speak as one. This kind of international outrage must never again be seen on our streets.
And anger too, David, towards the Russian television station Russia Today.
Yeah, a good deal of anger from MPs in the House of Commons when that statement was going on. Some were saying that Russia Today should not be allowed to broadcast in the United Kingdom, and a feeling from many MPs that MPs of whatever party should not appear on programmes put out by Russia Today. Now, of course, the former First Minister, Alex Salmond, has a show on Russia Today. Before Theresa May made her statement this afternoon, the BBC contacted Mr Salmond, but he did not wish to comment any further.
David Porter at Westminster, thank you for that update. A burnt-out car believed to have been used in a shooting in Glasgow is being examined by forensic experts. A 26-year-old man, understood to be William Barclay, was shot at, chased and stabbed in a residential street in the Springburn area on Thursday. Detectives believe a blue Volvo found in Ayrshire on Sunday was used in the attack. To sport now, and the national football manager Alex McLeish says he's hoping to usher in a great era for Scotland. He's announced his first squad since succeeding Gordon Strachan and has drafted in half a dozen new recruits. Kerden Itzan reports.
Out with the old, in with the new at Hampden. Not just a different coaching team, but a different looking Scotland squad with a lofty aim.
Your journey, you hope, ends in 2020 qualification.
That's it. That's it. And that's what we're all here for. And hopefully it's the start of a great era for Scotland.
High hopes then for the 6 new men in a 27-strong Scotland squad, including Hearts in-form keeper John McLaughlin, the Wolves and Aberdeen defenders Barry Douglas and Scott McKenna, midfielders Scott McTominay and Dylan McGeoch of Manchester United and Hibs respectively, and striker Ollie McBurney, currently on loan at Barnsley. Much has been made of McTominay choosing Scotland over England. He's a special one, according to the manager who coined the phrase.
He's using every minute on the pitch and outside the pitch to learn. He's humble, he wants to learn. He doesn't want headlines or flashes, he just wants to work, improve and be useful for his team.
There's a sense that this is the beginning of a new era for Scotland, a new management team and a challenge to the younger players in the squad. Step up.
You have a dream as a young kid to play with the team you support, but the ultimate dream is obviously to play for your national team, and that's what you want to bring back. But you want to make that experience a successful one, because that's what you want to do. You always want to manage the successes, and qualifying for the Euros is the ultimate goal, and if we do that, it's the first qualification for a long time, and surely that must be a goal for any young player to make them hungry and to obviously be part of these squads.
A symbol of the changing of the guard, there's no room for Darren Fletcher, a former captain. Gone too the likes of Robert Snodgrass, Akechi Anya and Chris Martin. Lying in wait a week on Friday, Costa Rica, who famously beat Scotland at the 1990 World Cup.
Oh, that's him! Tayasso!
Alex McLeish was on the losing side that day. His first job will be to make sure there's no repeat, now he's the manager. Kerry Nidsan, reporting Scotland.
Well, meanwhile, the Scotland rugby squad are on the right track despite the Six Nations loss to Ireland in Dublin. Well, that's the view of head coach Gregor Townsend, whose championship record this season is 2 wins and 2 losses. Ireland have now won the title, but the Scots can finish well with a victory over Italy in Rome on Saturday. More from our rugby reporter, Andy Burke.
He's got Hogg inside. Oh, the pass no good for Hogg.
What might have been.
The line was waiting for Stuart Hogg.
Golden chances spurned, soft tries conceded, undermining what was in large part a good Scotland performance in Dublin.
So some of those opportunities, I'd look at us and I'd think like 99 times out of 100 we'd take a chunk of those, okay? And sometimes you look at them and you know the quality of the players that are involved in there, and you just feel for them, because like I'd watch those guys in training and in matches take those chances time and time again, and it just so happened that in that game we stuck a few of them together, which for us I think is unusual.
For the second year running, Scotland's title challenge ended in round 4. So how far away are they from matching the likes of Six Nations champions Ireland?
We're not that far. You know, it's Six Nations is obviously a really tough competition and never gets any easier. You know, especially playing three away games against quality teams. Yeah, we're not far. We're not far. You know, we know that we're working hard every week, and just the small things that we need to fix, and hopefully we can sort that out come Italy.
Next up for Scotland is a trip to Rome. Italy's motivation is straightforward. After this defeat to Wales, beating Scotland is the only way to avoid a clean sweep of losses in this championship.
That's going to be a tough game, and I'm sure Italy have got a red circle on that March the 17th for a while, home game against Scotland. We just got to show progress.
The Scots may well look to their female counterparts for inspiration.
To Raleigh, and Raleigh is away, and she stands them up.
This stunning solo try from Chloe Raleigh helped Scotland to a first ever Six Nations victory over Ireland.
Raleigh gets there!
Their first away win in the competition in 11 years. Andy Burke, reporting Scotland.
What a run. A new international tennis event is coming to Scotland. The $100,000 ATP Challenger Tour will be held indoors on hardcourt at Glasgow Scotstoun at the end of April. Andy Murray's management team say it's too early in his recovery from hip surgery to say if he will be involved in the event. Good job it's indoors is all I can say. Let's get the weather now from Christopher.
Jackie, thank you. Hello there. Do you know, there was some lovely blue sky around today for some of us. This was near North Tulsa on the Isle of Lewis earlier, but for most of us it was fairly leaden skies, pretty grey and cloudy, and actually the satellite reveals all. You can see where the best of the sunshine was. The rain just about holding off from the borders, and a few showers in the northeast. And staying pretty cloudy for many of us tonight, but those clearer slots just edging eastwards overnight, and where they end up is where we'll see a frost in the countryside. The blue on the chart there indicating that. Towns and cities, though, staying above freezing and very little in the way of wind, perhaps a little bit of mist and fog here and there. So it is a cloudy start to the day tomorrow. Very weak weather front edging eastwards, producing the odd spot of light rain. But it will improve because there's some sunshine towards the west coast, and through the day, those sunnier skies drift eastwards. You can see the gaps between the isobars, barely a breath of wind. So actually, if you get some sunshine by mid-afternoon, 9 or 10 Celsius in the west, it's going to feel quite pleasant. Further east, well, the clouds taking a little bit longer to clear here. So 7, maybe 8 Celsius, and 1 or 2 very light isolated showers. Further north, a little more clouds stubborn to clear through parts of Caithness and Orkney. But for Shetland, well, some sunshine for you. A much better day compared with today. Winds lighter as well. Now, the rest of the afternoon into the evening, little in the way of change, really. Bit of cloud around, largely dry, but there is change on the way because this is the charts for midweek, Wednesday. You can see this large area of low pressure out in the Atlantic. Ahead of it, tightly spaced isobars, so quite windy, and it will be a windy Wednesday with strong south-southeasterly winds. Pretty cloudy, some outbreaks of rain at times towards the west coast. A little bit of brightness here and there, and reasonably mild. Temperatures up to 10 degrees or thereabouts. The black arrows there indicating wind gusts. Looking ahead to Thursday, still quite cloudy, some outbreaks of rain mainly in the west. Winds lighter and temperatures starting to come down. Because we go through towards Friday and the weekend, well, we start to see a return to much colder conditions, a risk of snow. Not as severe as the beast from the east that we had a couple of weeks ago, but actually the setup is similar. We have high pressure towards Scandinavia and the winds coming in from the east, and those will be cold. So on Friday, some sleet and snow showers, mainly on high ground, but come Saturday, the really cold air digs in, and we could see some snow to sea level. Of course, it's a long way off, but we'll keep you posted as it develops through the course of the week. Tomorrow, though, not too bad. That's the forecast for now.
Thank you very much, Christopher. And now a reminder of tonight's top story. The Prime Minister says it's highly likely that Russia was behind the attack on a former spy in Salisbury. Theresa May says Sergei Skripal and his daughter were poisoned by a military-grade nerve agent of a type developed by Russia. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'm back with the headlines at 8 and, of course, our late bulletin just after the 10 o'clock news. Join me for that if you can. Until then, from all the team, good evening.